So I'll be going through the 20 worst AFL games that I've been to in my lifetime, and essentially it's going to be just a list of the worst Saints losses that I've attended. So no, I won't be including any crappy or boring neutral matches. For example, Anzac Day Eve early in the year, that would have been in it.
Oh, it's been so boring.
For the people wondering why I haven't released my St Kilda v Brisbane vlog yet, the reason is not just because we got smashed by 85 and I didn't want to do it. It works as a good reason. However, I figured because it was such a bad game, in replacement of a vlog, I'll put a video up like this because it just makes the most sense. One more thing I'd like to add as well, I'll only be including games from 2009 onwards, because honestly for me, anything before 2009, I just haven't got a great recollection with, and I'm not going to be able to remember much. Now, before going through the official top 20 list, I figured we'll go through some honourable mentions, or in this case, I guess you can call them dishonourable mentions. 2022, Geelong St Kilda, we lost by 45 points. I remember vividly sitting in the Cats cheer squad. I got absolutely shat on from all the supporters in the second half. It was the first time visiting the Cattery, and I can understand why so many travelling fans bloody hate it. Adelaide St Kilda in 2014, we got done by 86 points at Marvel Stadium, and the damage was done before we even got to the game. I remember my dad driving to the game, but he took the wrong turn and he almost was on the way to the airport. He was that angry. It was already a terrible start before the game. We got there late, and that was basically the start of me realizing, damn, we're going to be a shit side for so long. A little bit more recent as well, in 2021, also against the Cats on a Friday night, a big primetime game. We score 5 goals, 17, and completely butcher a big chance at making maybe the top 8. I think King kicked like 5 or 6 behinds, and it was just a dirty night. We should have won. The fourth honourable mention is the Saints Hawthorn game in 2023 when we lost by 10 points. It was basically the unlosable game. I can't see you guys winning this. Dropping a valuable game like that against a side like Hawthorn, they were, I think at the time, in the bottom 3. Just unforgivable, especially when I was there with Roaming Haz. He gave me a lot of crap. And the final game I figured I'd mention as the dishonourable mentions is 2016, Rui's 300th game, massive occasion, and it was just such a big disappointment. It was a big letdown. We didn't play for this jumper. We didn't play for Rui. We got done by almost 10 goals against the Dogs. With that all wrapped up, let's count down 20 to 1, and we'll start off with 20 spot. St Kilda v Carlton in 2011, we lost 81 to 84. We played the Blues on a Monday night, and weirdly enough, during the early 2010 period, we'd always play the Blues on a Monday night, and I never really understood why. My dad did let me go to this game, even though it was obviously a school night, and it was just not a really good start to the game. I remember us trailing for most of it. I think we were down by almost 5 goals at one point. Then we stormed home the last quarter, and I thought when we hit the lead, the game was done. Surely we wouldn't lose it from there. In comes Andrew Walker with only minutes to go. Kicks a goal from literally the angle that I was sitting on, and the Blues fans erupted, and I just remember feeling like, oh my goodness.
Who do you think's going to win? You don't know.
The next game, it features in 2009 when we played the Bombers 110 to 108. Up until this point, we had won 19 games in a row. And honestly, in my eyes, it was a 20-0 game, this one, considering that the Bombers were outside the 8. Considering I was young, I was just taking our success for granted, just thinking that every game would be an easy win. Not actually realizing how lucky I was to be supporting such a successful club at the time, because man, I would kill for that to be the case right now. I remember sitting level 2 behind the goals at this game. My whole family were there. And I was just shocked. The fact that the Bombers completely destroyed us. We're down by more than 40 points late into the third quarter. We stormed back. I thought we were going to win the game when Nick Rowell had that shot after the sign, but he missed it. And it was probably the first time I genuinely remembered feeling really sad after a game of footy where we lost. Now, in 18th spot, we have the game that literally made this video. It was last week at Marvel Stadium, St Kilda v Brisbane. I don't really think I need to explain myself too much more. We lost by 85 points when, I mean, I thought we were going to, if not win, compete and make it close. I feel like in the current day AFL, there aren't really any excuses to losing a game by that much. Yeah, it was a terrible game, and we're going to move on to the next, which in 17th spot was against Sydney in 2015. We lost by 97 points. Now, I don't remember a lot from this game. I know I did go to it, but I don't remember heaps. It was, you know, during a period where pretty much every time the Saints play the Swans, it was always going to be a smashing, but not to this degree. It was almost 100 points. Like, it had to be thrown in there. In 16th position, we've got another pretty decent smashing. This was in 2013 against the Tigers at the MCG. I just remember being at the game, and as the game wore on, the margin just slowly got bigger and bigger. The weather was crap all day. It was a Sunday 4:40 game, which meant, you know, obviously I had school the next day. I remember in the last quarter, I was like to myself, well, I may as well make this game at least somewhat worth it. So I went to the cheer squad, and then 5 minutes later, I got kicked out because the idiot in me thought it'd be a great idea to wear a hoodie from my junior footy club, which was literally called the Mitcham Tigers. I I had proper Richmond colours underneath my Saints Guernsey. Like, what am I thinking? Against the Tigers as well. Of course they're going to kick me out. What an idiot that I was. Now in at 15th, we've got another game in 2024, and it was the game against the Bulldogs where we got done by 60 points. The reason this was ranked a little bit higher than some of the other 10-goal losses I've been a part of was mainly because of the expectations. I thought we were going to win it, particularly given the Dogs' form and the outs they had. Well, we just got done in the first quarter, and the fact that it was a Thursday night game kind of made it even worse given it was prime time. It was, in a way, the start of the downfall for the Saints season. In 14th position was my first trip to the Adelaide Oval in 2016, and we lost by 88 points. Well, honestly, the margin should have been more than 100 with all of Adelaide's scoring shots. This is during the period where the Croatians had such scoring firepower. Jenkins and Betts and Walker up forward. They completely killed us. We had no chance. I didn't think we were going to win, but I thought it'd be more competitive than what it was. Just a terrible game. I'm pretty sure we had a few injuries on top of that. The only reason it's not higher on the list is because I thought we were going to lose, and it was my first trip at the Adelaide Oval. Just getting to see the ground for the first time was kind of cool, to be honest. 13th on the list is a game in 2015 where we got done by 74 points against the Pies. Now, the reason this is a bit higher than what it probably would have originally been, it was because of the false hope we had at the start. 6 goals apiece in the first quarter, and then we just stopped. We ended up losing by 75 points. Friday night game as well against Collingwood. You want to turn up for a game like that, and it was wet as well. I just remember sitting there in that second half just going, what has happened? What's going on? Why am I here? I hate my life. Speaking of hating my life, that was certainly the case after this game. In 12th position, I have the infamous St Kilda and Port Adelaide game in Cairns, where we lost by 1 point in what was probably one of the worst quality games that anyone has really seen in the modern era. But in hindsight, having this game played in Cairns, like, what were they really thinking? Of course it was going to be slippery. Of course it was going to be wet. Both sides were extremely inaccurate. It was a really difficult game to watch. And then when that final siren went after that Robbie Gray point, one of the more eerie feelings I reckon I've ever had after a game.
Oh, piss off, Port Adelaide, you pricks.
You know, the reason why it probably isn't lower was because I guess we weren't smashed, and it was kind of cool to get my first experience at a game of footy in Cairns, but it was a fucking shit one, let me just tell you that. In 11th spot, we have St Kilda Essendon in 2022, and we got done by 35 points. Now, I remember pre-game, I was super confident, really pumped that we'd get a win, because this was to solidify a top 4 spot, I'm pretty sure, and it was basically what started the downfall of 2022. The Bombers only had 2 wins heading into this point of the season, and it was, you know, round 15. And the fact that we just got obliterated really from the first half, and the fact it was a Friday night game, plus Spud's game as well, it just made it even more disappointing. It was just a terrible night at the office. 10th position, another game at Marvel Stadium. This was the worst of the big Sydney home losses during this period. 2018, we lost by 71 points against the Swans. The Swans just probably had the most clinical first quarter I've seen from any side against us ever. They've kicked the first 9 goals of the game in the first quarter. It was over 60 points at half time. This is during a period where instead of going on an interstate trip, my dad and sister and I would pick a game that we could, you know, stay a night at the hotel in Melbourne. So this was that game. If I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure we decided to just leave the game early at like 3/4 time just to go back to the hotel. So instead we just binge watched the new entire season of Stranger Things instead, because we figured it was better than the crap that the Saints were dishing up at the game. 9th spot, we have one of the more recent games as well. This was Adelaide Saints game in 2024, and I titled it on my vlog probably the worst interstate trip of my life, and it just about was. Like, the game in itself clearly wasn't great. Just so many problems that occurred that night. We got kicked out of the cheer squad, you know, arguments with the security and other people there as well. I got given heaps of shit from the Crows fans. We scored 5 goals, and it was like raining terribly to make it even worse. It was a genuine disaster, and to make matters worse, I tipped the Saints lead into this game as well, so I was confident, and we fucked it up badly. Now in 8th spot, we have another interstate trip that just edges out this one, I reckon, in terms of it being the actual worst. It was in 2022 against the Swans. We lost by 52 points. We didn't show any effort from the first bounce, which was really disappointing considering that was the round where every team heading into it were in the 8 playing against each other. So we were in the 8 against the Swans. We needed a big game to test ourselves, because the week before was that Essendon game we mentioned earlier in round 14. And I'd argue that game was even worse the way we played. It was completely just diabolical. We showed no fight, no effort. It was one of the most low-scoring, boring games of footy for the year. It arguably ruined my entire Sydney trip. I mean, we only scored 2 goals up until the last 4 minutes of that last quarter. It was just terrible. And if you watch the vlog, I think I swore the most times I've ever sworn in a video. It may have been a record of upwards of 50 times.
We are fucking done. Our final chances are gone.
Now, speak your bad, this game in 7th spot was probably a lot worse than what the scoreline may have suggested. It was in 2018 against the Dogs. We lost 68 to 103. But it was just the fact that we kicked the first 5 goals of the game. I was really happy and excited with the start that we had. We kept the Doggies goalless in the first quarter, and then I don't know what the fuck happened in that third, but the Dogs kicked 8 goals to our 0. I just remember the Dogs fans behind us giving the Saints fans and us so much garbage. My dad just couldn't take it. It was like, nah, fuck this shit. At 3/4 time, it was like, we're done. So we left the game early. I just remember as well, like with a mate before the game, I had a bet saying that we'd beat the Dogs. I don't know why. And then just going back to school after that game, it was it wasn't fun. 6th spot, same year, 2018, North Melbourne St Kilda. I doubt many people watching remember this game much because it was arguably one of the more, least memorable games of the modern era. It was garbage. It was during a time when the Saints actually held on to a Good Friday time slot against North Melbourne. I wonder why that only lasted the 1 year. 2 goals 10 was the scores at halftime apiece, and it was only really till the last quarter where the game blew open, and I think North kicked 7 goals to our 0. My dad left the game early, and to make it worse, it was like a day before we went on our Mexico trip, so it made me feel a little bit flat before that. And we were expected to beat North as well to make things worse heading into this game. Now, breaking to the top 5, we have one of the biggest games I've ever been to in my life. It was the 2009 grand final between St Kilda and Geelong. The reason it's this high was due to the severity of the loss because it was a grand final, but the reason why it wasn't higher was because, like, I was sick, so I didn't really take it. I still took it a little bit for granted. I didn't realize how important a game like this really is. But yeah, I don't remember too much about the game. I definitely remember the last quarter where Chapman kicked that goal, and I remember kicking my seat going, damn it, the game's over. I remember thinking this a minute after he kicked the goal in my head. At school, I had a friend that went for Geelong, and I was like in my head, well, at least, they'll be happy with the win. Like, if this was now, there'd be no way in fuck that would be my first thought. Well, at least my mate that supports Collingwood will feel happy that they won at a grand final, after the team that I support literally lost it in the dying seconds. In 4th spot, we have St Kilda and the Western Bulldogs in 2021. This was one of the biggest losses I've ever seen live. It was a complete train wreck from start to finish. We lost the game by 111 points. I remember vlogging it, and to make matters worse, in the second half, I think it may have been Mitch Ryan that knocked my mic from the camera, and the entire second half screwed up the audio from the vlog. And then getting home from the game, we had bus replacements and my phone went flat and it was raining. I think it was a 2-hour trip back home after a 111 point loss. And it was during a time where I genuinely thought we'd make the game close, if not win. It was crazy, that game. Also in 2021, we had a few bad losses this year. In 3rd position, I've got the game against the Bombers in round 3 when we got absolutely smashed by 75 points. Again, like, what happened? I was heading into this one with even more confidence because we were playing a side winless in the Bombers. They were expected to be garbage that year, and the Saints, well, I still figured, after the high from 2020 that we'd have a pretty comfortable win, and I just couldn't have been more wrong. We were just completely smashed from start to finish. It just began the avalanche of smashings that occurred that year. And even at the game itself, like, things just didn't go my way. I remember we moved to level 1. We got kicked out from our seats. I think there was like a 10-minute period in the game where I think we're just wandering around trying to find a seat we can sit in. The fact that we got smashed by 75 points against the side I hate the most when they were winless, like, there are no excuses for that at all.
Definitely worst game I've seen in 8 years.
The top 2 now. In 2nd position, we've got the 2010 grand final replay, Collingwood and St Kilda. Now, this is ranked a little bit more high because personally, or at least at the time, I preferred to have at least competed hard in a grand final than getting absolutely blown out of the water. Like, we weren't in the game from the moment the first bounce occurred. I remember vividly when Heath Shaw smothered Nick Raywalk going, we're done. We're cooked. We're not going to win this game with the way it's going. And after 2009, I was a little bit more aware that, grand finals aren't just easy pickings. They're not a walk in the park. This was a pretty important game, especially after the draw the week before. And it just took out too much of our energy. It was terrible game. It was just a shit grand final, really, but being a St Kilda fan watching that. And now we round out to number 1, in my opinion, the worst loss I've ever been to as a St Kilda fan, and it was in 2014 Hawthorn v St Kilda, where we lost to the tune of 145 points. I may have mentioned this a couple times in previous videos, but realistically, you just can't have any other result. When you lose by that much, it doesn't matter that we were playing a top side in the Hawks and that we were one of the worst sides in the comp at the time. It's a 145 point smashing. I'm pretty sure this is the highest score we've conceded at a game that I've attended, and also, simultaneously, the lowest score we've scored ourselves at a game I've attended. It was It was crazy bad. And I was sitting with my annoying uncle that supported the Hawks, who really only cared about the Hawks when they were winning. And for some freaking weird ass reason, that was the one game my sister decided to convert into a Hawthorn fan and decided to just rub it into me the entire game. I remember she bought this Hawthorn scarf right here, the Hawthorn scarf I've been using in my videos for the last year and a bit. So, little story for you for that game, but yeah, I'm really surprised, honestly, that we didn't leave that game early. I feel like if we did, we just would have been given a whole lot more crap from the Hawthorn supporters that were at the game. Anyways, that rounds out the list for my top 20 worst games that I've been to, and obviously the list is all St Kilda losses, the worst losses I've put myself through, and there are some bad ones as a St Kilda fan. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It was something different. It's a video concept that I actually enjoy making, and I'm thinking I won't be doing the Richmond Saints game. I won't be vlogging it, or at least not on the main channel. So maybe I'll do the opposite of this, where I go over the top 20 best games, maybe best wins. And I've got a few other bits of content similar to this, like some list videos and just other videos about stories of the past that I kind of want to get out over the next few weeks. Maybe after the next one I do, I'll try and make a related video, you know, once every week or something like that. But let me know down in the comments, and give me your list of the best games you've been to, if you remember any of those games as a fan of the Saints or any other club. And yeah, we'll see you soon in my next video. Hopefully you enjoyed, and subscribe, and we'll see you soon.